well, I'm doing this in good faith. But I think the main thing that we need to do is to be much more, I'd say, media literate and media savvy, so that it's not possible for this false information to get past us. And we also need to be that guy. Like your aunt on your on your WhatsApp group is posting, like we found that, I don't know, going out into the sun for vitamin D is curing COVID. And then they say some Dr. John from Johns Hopkins. And then you ask them, like, where did you actually get this? And did you actually take the time to verify this information? So to hold people accountable for what they share, and then to also be accountable for what you share. Because that's when it becomes really problematic, when this false information starts circulating and no one knows where it's coming from, but everyone knows where it's going because they will take it and share it in a certain group. Yeah. So be much more conscious about the information you consume, the information you share, and be much more aware of the tools that exist. So do like a reverse image search if it's a photo, or look at the website where this information is being shared if it's a link.
Thank you for you wanted to make a final comment.
I'm laughing because when he was talking about it, I was thinking about, this WhatsApp group that people add you to. It was some funeral contribution. And amidst all that, somebody then sends a clip about plots for sale.
Don't want to miss out the opportunity.
The response.
That wasn't as bad as Brother Ochola's.
Captive audiences, yeah.
Thank you very much, Harry, for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Have a lovely day.
All right,
Keep it right here. The conversations continue to the next hour. In the next hour, we'll be having the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Defense, Ambassador Dr. Monica Juma. What is the role of the Ministry of Defense in national development? We've seen the Ministry of Defense now coming out. They have taken up the Kenya Meat Commission. The Ministry of Defense has aided Kenya Railways in revamping the railway lines, and they're doing many other things. So what exactly is their role? This is what we'll be discussing with Dr. Monica Juma in the next hour. Good morning. It's now 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Business Newswire on Daily Sasebo. President Uhuru Kenyatta should have presented his concerns on the 6 judges to the JSC during the interview process for the commission to present the concerns to the candidates, and not later after the process is complete. In a strongly worded statement, former CJ William Mutunga says a similar matter came up in 2015 that warranted a conversation with the president and JSC where a framework was agreed upon. He says due to the unique position he holds and being a Kenyan, the president should have presented the concerns to the JSC during the recruitment process and not after. He notes that failure by the president to present any adverse reports at the appropriate time, JSC had no option but to recommend for appointment. The Third Way Alliance Party has raised questions about IEBC's readiness for various activities expected before the 2022 general elections. The party Secretary General Frederick Okang raises 4 major issues, among them whether the KIMS kits are available and that they should be tested. The party also says that IEBC is required to outline the strategies put in place to facilitate the referendum and general elections within 1 year, as well as to show how it will undertake the delimitation of boundaries exercise. The party also seeks the Commission's stand on the possibility of postponing the 2022 general election. It should be noted that the Constitution allows the term of Parliament to be extended only in the event of war. The latest report released by Kisumu Governor Anyang' Nyong'o confirms that lack of adherence to COVID-19 protocols during the Madaraka Day celebrations has come with negative results. Over the last few weeks, Kisumu County has recorded a steady increase in its COVID-19 cases, which have led to a cumulative number of 5,739 infections so far. The situation is expected to worsen in the coming months, with neighboring counties in Nyanza and North Rift put on high alert. KCB Bank says questions surrounding Mumia's sugar as requested by the Senate Committee on Agriculture can only be answered by the appointed receiver and not the bank. In a letter to the Senate requesting to be excused from the meeting today, KCB Bank says it appointed the receiver, among other things, to protect the interest of the creditor and the miller due to the various cases filed against the company. Meanwhile, ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi is emphasizing the need to make clear the whole process of leasing Mumia's sugar factory, saying he does not oppose the process but wants the right processes followed.
mapendekezo ambayo ilitolewa kwa ile task force report ambayo wakati huu iko katika mikono ya Wizara ya Kilimo, watuonyeshe vile watatekeleza mapendekezo ambayo yako kwa hiyo report kuhusu labda mambo ya zoning, kuhusu mambo ya ushuru katika sekta ya sukari, kuhusu kurejesha hiyo Sugar Development Fund ambayo italenga wakulima wa miwa.
He challenged the government to ensure that its promises to invest in the revitalization of industries such as Mumias do not end up as just promises. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
SpiceFM, Kisumu. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Right, still lorry just under the Katanga to Blue Post flyover this morning, and that means that traffic is a bit of a mess right there. There's an emergency crew trying to sort out that particular issue. So if you're headed from the Nyeri to Thika Highway near the Blue Post flyover this morning, there's an emergency crew trying to sort out a trailer that has overturned, and that's an accident there. So please be careful. Langata Road this morning, unfortunately, yet another accident. I think this is the fourth one this morning. And as you're going then towards making the turn towards Bagavi, that's where an accident has occurred. So there's a heavy traffic snarl up there just because of that. You're going to have to watch out for that one as well, especially for those folks who are turning off from Mombasa Road using that route to get into the CBD. So a mess of traffic has already been created this morning, where we hoped that things were getting a little bit better. Coming off Mombasa Road, getting then towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, that doesn't look too bad right now, but we know we're going to get stuck. Uhuru Highway, all the way from Mombasa Road exit through to Westlands, is very slow in and out of the city. So let's watch out for those. We're in the middle of traffic hour now. We have to keep an eye on things and see how they open up. Talk to us, SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text on 40127. Tell us what it looks like where you are, and we'll see how we can keep things moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
It's
day.
5 minutes after 8 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, the third hour of our show. We are here every weekday morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and we are now live on KTN Home for the next 1 hour, in addition to being live on SpiceFM and live on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. www.spicefm.co.ke is our website. City, today's proverb.
An envious person requires no reason to practice envy.
An envious person requires no reason to practice envy. At all.
Doesn't require reason. Nor, well, so long as the opportunity provides itself, they will go at it hammer and tongs. Yes.
So the one who sees the grass as being greener in the neighbor's compound, that's an envious person.
One could actually say yes, that is an envious person, because the alternative would be to find out how it is your neighbor has green grass and you don't. But instead, you find reason to explain why you don't have green grass instead of trying to figure out how you can get green grass. And in figuring out, you will feel and understand that it is that neighbor's fault that
We may divert maji yetu,
Yes,
so we don't have water.
yes.
So
Hence,
that's
no
why
grass,
they have.
that's green.
Yes. Our guest for this hour is the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Defense, Dr. Monica Juma. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
From that proverb, an envious person requires no reason to be green with envy. I was asking them, what is the difference between envy and jealousy?
I'm not very good with proverbs, so I think Prof can proceed to explain that difference.
You see,
He's the wise man here.
actually, every time or any time someone tells you you are wise, what they are inadvertently referring to
You're old.
is chronology at here. Okay. They just want to, okay, so I don't kuita mzee, lakini we will just call you wise. But you understand that what we mean is you're actually quite old. So now, as an old person, let me speak. You see, these are sometimes referred to as vices, and yet they're an integral part of what we human beings are. And honestly, part of the reason why people are motivated to do certain things is because of these two qualities, the jealousy and envy. When somebody has achieved something that you feel you ought to have, it can motivate you to pursue it. If you find that in a relationship something is amiss because somebody is comparing what they have and what they could have and what they don't have, it could spur you to also seek to attain that very thing that is a subject or the genesis of this emotion that we refer to as jealousy. Yes. So, if, for instance, I have a friend who is always telling me about how beautiful his wife is, I will go back and look at my wife and ask, what can I do to ensure that my wife can be referred to in similar terms?
By that man or by
But
you?
exactly.
It usually isn't by me because I'm actually happy with my wife.
You want
It is,
somebody else to say,
it is, it is what other people, and that's why if it is just by me, it wouldn't be jealousy. There has to be a third party for this thing to work. So it is essentially, these things have to do not with you, but external factors that elicit this. And it also points to a feeling of inadequacy that you may have.
Right.
Yes.
Dr. Juma, the Ministry of Defense, in recent time past, it has been right now in the headlines, positively, of course, because of the work that they've been doing. But before we get into what the work that they have been doing, let's first of all understand the Ministry of Defense and the Department of Defense. Are they one and the same? Where is the linkage between the Chief of Defense Forces and the Cabinet Secretary for Defense?
Thank you very much, Latif, for that question. The Ministry of Defense, of course, is one of the 20-some ministries of this country, but it is organized around two plaques. It has a uniformed plaque, which is headed by the Chief of Defense Forces, and there is a civilian plank. The reason for this is because this country is a democracy, and there's the presumption of a civilian authority oversight over any uniformed formation. And this is not just for the defense forces. It is similar with the police force, for example. It is similar with the prison services, for example. It is similar with the Kenya Wildlife Services, and any uniformed cadre is constitutionally under civilian administration. So the Ministry of Defense is organized in that fashion. There are not two ministries. There is one ministry headed by a cabinet secretary.
So you provide now the civilian oversight
Absolutely.
of what's happening in our defense.
I do. Yes, I do. That is my mandate.
So you can say you're
I'm the CS Defense.
the senior most civilian in the military.
That's true.
So in
That's
military
true.
terms, you would be a field marshal.
No, I'm not in the military, so there are no military terms applicable to me. There are no military terms applicable to me.
So if we just look at the Moi years, the military was military and there was no direct Ministry of Defense. It was falling under the office of the president. Was that it?
Well, that is not exactly true. And I think that goes to the way a head of state organizes the delivery of his mandate. So it is not inconceivable to have the Ministry of Information under the presidency. You know, it depends on how the president conceives of the administrative aspect for the delivery of his oath of office. And so in certain countries, you would find, for example, marine under the presidency. For instance, in countries that are maritime countries, and consider that this is an important aspect, it may be placed under the presidency. So the organization of government takes various formations depending on the interpretation of what would be delivered best within what structure. And when we began, it is true, there were portfolios under the office of the president. Our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for example, the first Minister of Foreign Affairs was the president. Okay? President Jomo Kenyatta was the first foreign minister. So it depends on how you want our government is organized, and that is the prerogative of the chief executive.
Okay. Now, looking at the military and how then it has, worked in recent years, let me just go back to like the Kibaki years. The Kibaki years, we saw President Moi Kibaki then established the Ministry of Defense, and at the same time started tapping some senior officers in the military to come and perform other functions. So, for example, the then Brigadier Mohammed Hussein Ali came and became the Commissioner of Police.
Correct.
We have seen the same under the Uhuru administration. But now we're also seeing an instance where a function is hived off one ministry and brought to the Ministry of Defense, Kenya Meat Commission. We also see the military officers assisting some civilian functions, like we see military officers working in the railways, ministry officers also working in other civilian arms. What's that linkage? Do they work under you, or do they then work, for example, when the military officers are assisting Kenya Railways, is that the Ministry of Defense assisting Kenya Railways, or is that the military wing of defense assisting Kenya Railways?
Well, let me just begin by, first of all, debunking this notion that there is movement into the military, into the defense, Nothing new, really. When I was in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we were the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade.
Yeah.
Today, the portfolio of trade is sitting with the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Cooperative Affairs. How come this has not become an issue? And this is within this tenure, and the portfolio of trade is one of the biggest portfolio because we are a trading nation. In fact, you would expect that this would be a big conversation. No, it's not, because there's nothing new. There's nothing wrong about it. And the Department of Cooperative, it's been moved from there. Department of Petroleum and Energy, it's gone to mining, it's gone to energy, it's gone. Listen, there is nothing extraordinary that has happened. And in fact, the notion when you come down to the Meat Commission, for example, this is a state corporation. Again, you will see a lot of movement if you actually do your research. Of the 200 and some corporations, they have been moving everywhere because the idea is to try and place them in an administrative framework that helps them to deliver on their mandate. Having said that, generally, when you come to the Ministry of Defense, I think it would be instructive for people to look at what the mandate of the Ministry of Defense is from a constitutional point of view. The Constitution provides for three key functions of the Ministry of Defense. First, we defend and protect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of this nation. That's the core mandate. Second, we offer aid to civil authorities constitutionally. That means that you can actually, and this explains why we do things like when there is a drought, we can provide logistics to move food. When there is a flood, we secure people. When there is an accident, a fire in the KWH Conservancy, we will be there. This is aid to civil authorities, and it is there provided for within the Constitution. Thirdly, if there is disturbance in the country, with the authority of Parliament, we can deploy to restore peace and stability. So those are three. And so anything you see that has been done by the Ministry of Defense, it is actually within that constitutional mandate, nothing outside of it. So the provision, for example, the question you ask about the railway, when we are called to support in the rehabilitation of the railway. It is part of the second mandate provided for in the Constitution.
I think the first mandate is where all attention stops.
Correct.
When you look at the protection of the defense and sovereignty of a nation, that is what everybody hears when we hear the Ministry of Defense.
Yeah.
So then when you see that there is support being offered, or that there is activity in what would be otherwise labeled as purely civilian activity, then you think that there is a shift in focus. And I'm being very clear about what, sentiments that have come out over the last few, is that there is a shift in focus away from the sovereignty or the protection of the land.
But you can't shift from your own mandate, as I've explained. Providing civil assistance to our civil authorities does not preclude the mandate of territorial defense and protection of territorial integrity. So it is not either or. We are conceived to deliver on those three, and we are doing that. Yeah. So one does not take over or is not done in lieu of the other.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how far can this go? I mean,
well, in fact, there's a huge doctrine around civil-mil relations. Huge doctrine, and it is not a new one. If anyone is interested in the history of this, it starts as early as the debates around the philosopher king and the defenders who protect the protectors kind of debate. It's a big debate. It's a historical debate. And the notion of civil oversight is precisely to balance that, so that you say you can oversight over the protectors, and within the democratic theory, about people's sovereignty over every instrument of power, in this case, the defense force, yeah? But increasingly, and this is not just about Kenya, countries have deployed their defense competencies for a number of things. And if you look at, again, the history of industrialization, a lot of militaries have been the vanguard of industrial, transformation. Yeah. So nothing new, nothing new. And I think what is happening now is that the administration is deploying competencies that are within itself to add value, to optimize their value for society. Many countries, including on this continent, whether large and small, whether they're talking about Egypt, whether they're talking about South Africa, whether they're talking about Rwanda, the role of the military in contributing to national development is not a matter of debate. It's a matter of course, and so it is really deploying, and as I've said before, I think the smart thing a country does is to deploy the full range of its competencies. And in the MOD, we have those competencies, and we have been asked to deploy them. We've done it, and it is working. It is working.
It's true. I mean, if you look at the cadres in the military, there's all the professions are there.
True.
And you're highly well-trained and highly motivated officers who serve in our military. But then, if you look at the examples that you've given in Rwanda, if you look at Uganda, if you look at South Sudan, the relationship between the military and the civil is almost one and the same. It starts from one into the other. In this country, we haven't had that kind of direct, say, application of our military. I'm trying to look for the words here. Application of our military in the daily civil, say, aid to civil authorities. It's not daily. It's on one-offs. We have.
It's this, very limited.
We have this disaster. Then come in. Yeah. We have this and the other now come in. But now it seems to be increasing, and that's what the question is: why now? What is changing? Is it a factor of the times we are living in, or is it a factor of certain realizations within the civil leadership of the country?
Well, one of the things, for example, even the responses that we are used to, namely responding to emergencies, there is no doubt that the frequency of emergency and calamity is growing. This is not a Kenyan phenomenon. I mean, we are having cyclic drought, cyclic floods, cyclic fires. So it is likely that you're seeing more and more deployment because of this reality. And that reality, in fact, if we didn't do that, we'd be failing. We'd be failing in our core mandate. So that response is not an issue. Well, what has become a big public debate is one issue around the KMC, and really this is a very small part of our aid to civil authority if you looked at it in the totality of the work that we are doing. And I think the question must be, why such public interest? And I've actually been asking myself, why in KMC? It's not the largest portfolio.
Could I attempt to answer that?
Yeah. So, yeah.
If I attempt to answer that, if you look at, just like I said, start with the Kibaki years, and you see military officers coming to serve in the civilian side of government, and then you see more and more. You see retired military officers being deployed as ambassadors. We see retired military officers, well, we have been used to that. Former general gets to serve in a certain board, and that they're offering that kind of oversight of a parastatal. But getting into the cabinet, getting into principal secretary, getting into Inspector General of Police, getting into a former military officer who is heading anti-corruption, we are seeing more and more retired major, retired general, retired lieutenant, and that's where now it goes into, it's no longer retired, it is current,
active.
Go to KMC.
No, listen, let me put it this way. First of all, every officer serving in the KDF or in the MOD is a Kenyan. I mean, let's start there.
Yeah.
This notion that there are Kenyans who can't serve because of where they were before, I think in and of itself is really misguided. Huh? It doesn't go to, the same questions are not asked on the civilian side. In fact, the civilian side, you say, is this person qualified? The big debate is, are they qualified?
Yeah.
And I wish that was the debate that we were having here. Is this person delivering? Because I think this notion that somebody has been uniformed and therefore somehow they are sinister. They are sinister, and you must.
Well, there's an element of control they want to wield.
Yeah, they are sinister. Their work is to control people, and maybe I don't know what else they are going to do with us. Yeah. I think it's a very wrong thing. Let's start from the premise that we are dealing with Kenyans. Okay, are they able to deliver on the mandate? And I think if we ask that question, it would be a proper question to ask, because the idea is to improve on the services. The idea is to improve on the pursuit of the national aspirations in terms of our development plans and things like that. And the question that must be asked, even of this persistent question of the KMC, is there a turnaround? Is there a turnaround? What is the turnaround looking like? And is there a lesson that can be transferable from this to maybe another agency?
Can I ask you then, do you think it can be delivered? Because if we look at KMC, it was not a dying, it was dead. If we look at what was happening in Nairobi, for example, many would argue that the city was falling apart. So do you think then that with the invitation and the entrance then of whether they're active or retired, military officers, doesn't matter, do you think then some order and then some reorganization in the operations of these two, as an example, could yield results?
Well, I think that question can be answered by Kenyans who are receiving the services. I mean, it is self-explanatory. When we went into the KMC, we found a situation. The first briefing I received said, this place slaughters between 3 and 7 cows a day. Facts don't lie. This was the situation on the ground. And we said, 7 cows a day?
A local butcher could do that.
What is the staff portfolio? 347. Really?
7 cows.
What are we paying per month? We could buy those cows from that money 10 times, 5 times. Do we need it then? And you go in and you say, okay, I need a plan. I need a plan to turn this thing around. And you have 60 days to turn this thing around. What requires to happen? And what requires to happen, happens. What requires to happen happens. Within 60 days, we began to test the system. Yeah, we began to test the system. And we used a month to test the system. And we were ready. I was satisfied that we could roll out. Right now, we are providing meat across this country to all the defense units. From the 1st of June, we began to provide to the other security sector. We have gone around the country, 17 counties in total that have livestock as their mainstay, to explain the model that we are going to use, and to explain how we will receive, and to explain how we'll process, and to explain the business process. So it is not whether it will happen, it is happening.
So it took 60 days for a plan to be developed, for you to approve it, for it to be put into motion, and for it to actually be actualized.
Yes.
Within 60 days?
Within 90 days, 60 days we began to test, and within 90 days we rolled.
So what was the problem?
The problem
What
was
did you bring
from
in?
slaughtering 7 cows, we are at the point now of doing 200, and we believe that by the end of this year we will be doing close to 2,000 a day. We should.
From the initial analysis, why were they doing only 6-7 cows a day?
Well, they could answer that, but clearly there was a lot of systems that were not functional. Okay, number one. There was a very huge lack of proper supervision, there was no business processes, so it didn't matter. Farmers would come and they literally want to get into the slaughterhouse with their cows to make sure the cow is going to, yeah, things like that just add to the cost of doing business and that make it very difficult to be productive, frankly.
But Madam CS, there's an element of order that comes with the military.
That's correct.
And everybody knows about that. There's an element of operation. Certain things are done in a certain way. And you even see this outside of work. It's carried on into the lives of these individuals. Do you think that this plays a role in what we are seeing and what could be if it's picked up in other sectors?
It's about doctrine. I mean, I know a little bit about the other sectors, but in the military, there is a doctrine. It helps to have a clarity of vision. It's very clear, this is what we are doing, this is how we are going to do it, and you are the one who will deliver on this. So it's very clear who is going to deliver on what. But more importantly, it is also very clear to everybody that there are consequences for not following through. It is very clear. So it's about the clarity of the objective. It's about the understanding of the modality. It's about the discipline, the commitment to stay the course. And it's about delivering, So it's an entire doctrine.
Yeah.
And that, I think, that is important. That is very, very important, not just in the military. Frankly, it is important for any enterprise that functions and that delivers. You have to have all those elements.
You asked this question, Madam Secretary, why was KMC such a big hoo-ha? If we went on this continent, and if the military was not considered to be part of our establishment that deals with external aggression, and if we didn't have Mali happening, and we didn't have other parts of the continent and countries around the continent where the armed forces got into civilian life forcibly through coups, the discussion on the military wouldn't be an issue. Partly because people perceive the military, should we say, suspiciously, because the military doesn't interact with civilians on a daily basis as does the police force. But even more significantly, there is the understanding of security. When we talk security, we are thinking thugs, hoodlums to be dealt with by police. We're thinking of a war, insurgents coming into the country. But I am of this view that the real security of the country has nothing to do with any of this. It has to do with the population of that particular country, the citizenry, being at ease and in understanding that their affairs are being looked after in the manner that they expect. That, to me, is actually security. Because
a government that delivers.
Yes, because then that government can enjoy the support of the citizenry. Now, that is security.
On that very good note, let's take a break and then see as you can come and comment on that. 28 minutes to 9 o'clock. We are having a conversation with Dr. Monica Juma, the CS in the Ministry of Defense. The role of the Military of Defense in national development is what we're talking about. Now, we'll be focusing on the Kenya Meat Commission and what they have been able to do, what they are doing, what the plans are going forward. And then also we look at, so if this can happen in 90 days, what else can happen in even 30 days or 15 days or longer? Good morning. Kenya's biggest conversation continues shortly on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, and online. We'll be back.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
What is the best gift to celebrate a birthday?
Cash, of course.
What if I told you that you can get cold, hard cash for celebrating a birthday? This June, I, Olivia Otieno, is giving 10,000 shillings to 41 lucky SpiceFM listeners to celebrate my 41st birthday. That's right, this June, 41 lucky SpiceFM listeners will get 10,000 shillings cash. All you need to do is SMS the word cash to 29599. That's cash to 29599. And if your SMS is number 41 or number 1041 every Monday to Friday, you walk away with 10,000 shillings cash. Each SMS costs 10 shillings. Terms and conditions apply. Go to spicefm.co.ke for more details.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
We've been all through it, you know. We go to school, study hard, get the much-deserved grades and celebrate our graduation. Then reality hits us. We get to the job market and we simply don't know where to start off. Thankfully, by visiting jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, your next career breakthrough could be a click away. Get the best in career advice, employment opportunities, internships, part-time jobs, CV writing and interview coaching. Give your career the much-needed lift on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke.
What is the best gift to celebrate a birthday?
Cash, of course.
What if I told you that you can get cold, hard cash for celebrating a birthday? This June, I, Olivia Otieno, is giving 10,000 shillings to 41 lucky SpiceFM listeners to celebrate my 41st birthday. That's right, this June, 41 lucky SpiceFM listeners will get
10,000 shillings cash.
All you need to do is SMS the word cash to 29599. That's cash to 29599. And if your SMS is number 41 or number 1041 every Monday to Friday, you walk away with 10,000 shillings cash. Each SMS costs 10 shillings. Terms and conditions apply. Go to spicefm.co.ke for more details.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 16, coming down to lows of 14 today, and cloudy in Nyeri as well at 15. We'll see lows of 14 and highs of 22. Sunny conditions in Nakuru at 15, highs of 25 and lows of 14. 25 will also be the high in Eldoret, where it's sunny at 14. Sunny conditions in Kisumu at 20, going to highs of 30. We'll see highs of 29 in Kakamega. It's sunny at 20. 25 degrees and a rainy Mombasa, highs of 28. 28 will also be the high in Malindi, where it's raining in some parts, and mostly sunny conditions in Kampala at 24. Partly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 23, highs of 25. It's sunny in Johannesburg at 7. Come to a low of 5 and highs of 12. Highs of 31 in a rainy Lagos this morning at 22. And partly sunny in Kinshasa at 23, highs of 24, 34, and lows of 24.
SpiceFM.
It's getting hot in here. oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they are getting per year, how much inconvenience they are causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatikana koroge.
It's still hot and heavy at Ngara as they're trying to get into the city centre coming off Mombasa Road. Off of Thika Road. Wangari Maathai was the option that we're using this morning. All right, Nyeri towards Thika, the blue post flyover right there. That accident that took place early this morning with the lorry still to be moved. And so it is causing quite some traffic, guys. Casualties are being assisted. Traffic is being diverted to the service lane. So if you're headed in that direction, that's what is lying ahead. So please be extremely careful. Overspeeding will not help here at all. Police and other security agencies there, as well as some ambulances to sort things out. Wayaki Way getting then joining from James Gishuru going down is also a mess. It's probably a good idea to use the Red Hill Link Road right now. Okay, guys, let's look at the other side of the city. A fatal accident just occurred at Majia Chumvi along Voi Mombasa Road near Mariakani town. It's a bad one. Lives lost, police on the scene as well. Heavy traffic in that area. So it doesn't look like a good day for traffic today. Wherever you are, please be extremely careful. Let us know what's happening in your neck of the woods. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
20 minutes
Mornings
to 9.
done right.
Conversation continues. In the Situation Room is Eric Latif, Ndu Oko C.T. Muga, and the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Defence, Dr. Monica Juma. At what point do we insert Ambassador?
It's your choice.
Ambassador Doctor. Doctor Ambassador.
This is really good. I am actually going to go to town on this one.
Really?
Your Excellency. Plenipotentiary.
Yes. Extraordinary.
Yes.
All protocols observed.
All protocols observed.
And none left out.
Right. Talking about the role of the Ministry of Defence in national development, and especially now focusing on Kenya Meat Commission, which the MOD took over operations of recently, and we saw the president going in to launch the new revamped Kenya Meat Commission. Remember those days, City, when KMC used to do a lot of nyama, corned beef and all.
Did I not tell you?
I'm reminding you. I'm not.
No,
remember means that it's a time when I was also alive.
It was a long time ago. Yes, I was an adult and
Eric
you
was a boy.
And I was a baby.
And you're still probably walking barefooted. Okay, carry on. Yes.
Do you remember?
I remember.
Lovely meat coming out of Kenya Meat Commission. And then over the years, we basically got to a point where we're not getting...
My friend, we were a major exporter. Forget providing meat for the exporter of meat products. Working for KMC was considered to be something to be extremely proud of. It's something when someone said they worked for KMC, you felt this is somebody who has a privileged position and is working for an agency that you can be proud of. Yes. But I guess all other agencies, like when you talk, someone worked for the railway, it was something to be proud of. If someone worked for Kenya Ports Authority, it was something to be proud of. Put it this way, when you worked for the government, it was something to be proud of.
Yeah.
Yes.
If we look at this country and how many people are actually involved in beef production or just meat production, whether it's cows, sheep, goats, pigs, everything else. Camels.
Donkeys.
It's a very big industry. And seeing now that KMC is being revived, is it also now targeting and looking back at how do you support the very many Kenyans who rely on beef on meat as their source of livelihood?
Oh, that is the intention. And when this instruction came to us, when this transfer came to us, it was very clear that we did not have the option of failing. It was very clear from the start. And so we set our minds to revamping this strategic institution. And I am confident that we are heading back to those days, and better places, because, as you have said, the problem is not one of the market. It is not one of the farmers. But we also believe there is another benefit in terms of even reducing the challenges we've been seeing with cattle rustlings and things like that. We are hoping that we can help have farmers form cooperatives within the livestock, and so that we can begin to uptake within a cooperative framework to help with the squabbles that we've been hearing, especially in the livestock growing areas. So it's not just about the commercial side of it. I think it will have an effect also of stabilizing the industry and the entire value chain. But also from a security point of view, we believe that it is going to contribute to stability and peaceful coexistence.
Looking at the 3 mandates, just coming off of KMC and all that's going on there, the 3 mandates that you have to then fulfill as a ministry, and then coming to the issue of funding from the national government, is it enough to cover the country? Is it enough to fulfill those 3 mandates at the moment?
Well, funding has never been sufficient, even at a personal level. Yeah, we always. Really. All of us are struggling. All of us are struggling with budgets, from the most micro point to the macro point as the government. And there is no doubt that, given the experience of this nation in the last 1 year with COVID, there's a lot of constriction in terms of the exchequer. So it's not a problem of the Ministry of Defense only. And that is why a conversation then began in terms of how do we deploy our competencies again so that we can become a contributor to the exchequer. Part of this what we are doing is actually in that direction. And the standing of the shipyard is principally in this direction, because this establishment is which has already begun the construction of MV Uhuru 2, is intended to catalyze the development of the ship industry, so that we are able to build, we are able to maintain, we are able to repair ships, not just for the Navy, but for the entire stakeholders that deal with an array of the blue economy, whether it is in terms of fishermen, whether it is in terms of tourism, whether it is in terms of surveillance and things like that. And so we are quite excited, because we are seeing not just the contribution in terms of industrialization, technology transfer, but we are seeing the possibility of accruing for the exchequer resources that can begin to contribute, and reduce the stress levels in terms of the resources. But resources are never enough. We could do with a little more, and as I'm sure many other ministries would too.
If I look at the budget allocation for this particular year, this very contentious one, your ministry it's reported that your ministry has gotten a boost of 6 billion.
Well, when you look at it cumulative, that's what it looks like. But I want you to look at that in relation to the tasks assigned. In that year, we also carried a substantial increase of new tasks. So really that budget was not
it's following
an increase. It's following functions, frankly. So we are not, because there's also this perception that we are kind of favored in such a way.
Actually, why I brought it in.
And this is not true. This is not true if you look at the percentages and if you look at the roles that we are playing. But most importantly, if you look at the deployment of the resources against output. Because I think that is what measures.
I think you've gotten the heart of the matter, because I brought it up because I was looking at that increase and I'm looking at the increased activities and the demands on the services, and I'm asking, From a purely commercial perspective, all right, what then do we expect as a commensurate output from this particular input?
Let me just remind us. When we helped the Kenya Railways to revamp the Thika Nanyuki Railway, nobody is looking at what has been the input of that commercially in terms of the haulage of cargo, in terms of the reduction of cost of the cargo, in terms of saving the weight carriage on roads, for example. You know, the day when the president was relaunching the KMC, we had the first wagon delivery of animals from Laikipia. Okay? So if you look at just the commercial impact of that railway, the amount of money we spend in terms of rehabilitating it has probably been recouped manyfold back, you know. So just revamping that railway is resuscitating the economy of that entire belt, So the idea is to catalyze that development. And I am waiting to see, once we relaunch the Nakuru Kisumu rail, the impact of that. And this is coming from looking at MV Uhuru 1. From when we launched it, when we refurbished MV Uhuru 1, to date, we have hauled upwards of 60 million tons of fuel into Port Bell. Okay? That has translated into reduction of cost of fuel in Uganda, for example. Impact of that on the spillage of oil. I mean, and all the shenanigans that go with it.
Yeah.
The destruction on the roads, the accidents on the road. Listen, if you just did a complete calculation of the impact of that act, then you begin to see the multiplier effect. Its effect on Kisumu itself and Port Bell and so forth. So facts are there, and frankly, the beauty about facts is that they don't lie.
Something that you mentioned, that you're now looking at how can you assist in contributing to this kitty that you draw from.
Absolutely.
So is this like a formation of a military-industrial complex where you're saying the military now are getting more and more involved in commercial ventures? The shipyard, you've talked about Kenya Meat Commission. We talk about when you're coming in to assist the Kenya Railways and what you put in, the small arms factory and many others. Are we seeing our military now looking, or our Ministry of Defense, looking at how it then becomes a commercial entity?
Not a commercial entity. It's how, and I have to say this, from the Defense Council, we have processed, and up to the National Security Council, a policy on industrialization, military industrialization, within the framework of contributing again to the larger aspiration of the nation towards industrialization. Because you said, how does the military contribute to this agenda of government? And we are not going to do this in an haphazard manner, So we do have a policy that has been processed through government. And yes, so that is one of the big ones. But in relation to ourselves, it's the only way, in my mind, that you begin to create self-sufficiency. And one of the lessons we have learned is that when you have global constriction, either because of a phenomenon like COVID-19, it can have profound impact on your operations. Because where you are getting your materials, that you can't move those materials, and this can actually impact even your co-mandate. Okay? And this is why we are now focusing on some very strategic issues around our own self-sufficiency in terms of critical assets that we require to perform our mandate. And hence this whole question about the small arms industry and things like that. But it's not just the small arms industry. We've already established a school or a center of excellence in aviation training, so that we can reduce the amount of monies we are spending to train our pilots outside. It costs an enormous amount of money to train one fighter pilot, for example. But if we can do it at home, then you reduce that cost significantly. And so we have established an aviation training center of excellence, not just for ourselves, for the region, but we are also thinking in terms of increasing the safety of our airspace. So even the civilian pilots and things like that, we do not want to see the kind of some of the things we are seeing of planes dropping from the sky, because we've not created a standard, that can be ascertained, from a competency point of view. And so we are contributing to our own in terms of the quality and standard of the Kenya Air Force. But at the same time, we understand that part of that country's safety must also extend to the civilians, stakeholders in this.
I'm looking at, say, for instance, our Defense Staff College.
Correct.
And I'm looking at the level of competency and excellence that even draws from not just our neighbors, but from the African continent.
Correct.
So it actually means that the things you're doing have been doable for a long time.
Correct.
I'm not going to ask a political question. I'm just going to go to the shipyard business. Southern Engineering builds ferries. Is the work of the shipyard going to complement the sort of work that is done by organizations like, say, Southern Engineering? Are they going to look at ways of cooperating? Because why do I say this? We seem to import our ferries. We bring them. And yet, some of our neighbors have been acquiring their ferries from
a Kenyan-based company.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I think we are trying to stop the idea of importing. In fact, one of the major components of this process is technology transfer. It was very interesting for me to see MV Uhuru 1 before the work. MV Uhuru 1 was plying that route for many decades, since 19-something, in the early century.
It was last century, around the 60s. There.
Okay. So, but the most interesting thing is that it became clear that whoever built it and brought it, just built it and brought it. There was not any element of technology transfer. And so when it ground to a halt, it just ground to a halt. Okay? It has been fascinating to watch the process of rehabilitating that vessel and the learning that has come out of it. The idea that we must make sure whoever we partner with, there is a framework for technology transfer. And we have worked that out very carefully, that by the time we are finishing with MV Uhuru 2, and by the time we begin to work on some of the vessels in the Navy, there will be substantial technology transfer, and we'll be taking in orders. Actually, I can tell you we've started to do that in preparation even for Mutongwe. So the shipyard that is sitting in Mutongwe is going to be the largest on the continent, And so we have telescoped this, not for now. We are telescoping this to make us a major player in this industry, certainly on the African continent. And that is why I can speak with a bit of confidence in terms of where we are going.
A bit. That's a lot of confidence.
You're breathing with confidence.
Yeah. There's been a lot of thinking around this. There's been a lot of hours that have been applied to this.
Dr. Monica Juma, Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Defense, is with us in the studio. We want to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home who've been with us since the top of the hour. It's time for you to take a break, but you can switch over to the conversation on SpiceFM wherever you are. 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri 90.9, Malindi 97.7, or you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, because we are live streaming there as well. SpiceFM KE is any of those platforms. Good morning.
SpiceFM, Nyeri. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
All right, Dr. Juma,
done right.
as we conclude the conversation
94.
today, there are very many people who, like we started the conversation, there are those who are looking at this and wondering, so what is the end goal here in terms of the Ministry of Defense getting more and more involved here? How would you allay the fears of those that may still be having those fears? And how would you encourage those that are not encouraged or those that require that encouragement of let's use what we have as a resource in our military?
I think we've not done very well in terms of explaining to the public. I think that's the problem, probably. But I think every Kenyan should walk with a great measure of pride in relation to our defense forces. We have one of the most respected globally defense forces, professional, disciplined, that has proven itself in terms of execution. And this is not just in terms of our own national interest, even in terms of contributing to international peace and security. We have deployed to more than 44 peace support operations in the world. And we continue to be asked to do this, to make this contribution. So every Kenyan should really walk tall because this is a force for good. And the deployments that we have had in terms of contributing to national development are aimed to enhance services to our nation and to contribute to our national development. So we should all be very proud of having a military force like the one we do that is constitutionally compliant and that is serving this motherland with distinction.
Indeed they are, and we want to send you with a message back to them. All of them, from the general to the junior officers, proud of what they do.
Thank you.
In defense of our country and also in supporting civilian operations.
Thank you very
City,
much.
did I speak on your behalf as well?
You spoke wisely, my brother.
Very good, very good. Dr. Monica Juma, Dr. Ambassador Dr. Monica Juma, Cabinet Secretary for Defense. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to host you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Asante
It's
sana.
been a pleasure.
Keep it right here. Kenya's biggest conversation continues into the next hour. Wherever you are tuned in, we'll be asking you to contribute to the conversations as well. 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. Or reading many of your comments on social media, SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. It's now 9 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
I'm Dennis Aseto. A section of Mount Kenya leaders led by former Embu Senator Lenny Kivuti Saide support Justin Muturi as the Mount Kenya spokesperson. They are now calling on Muturi to consolidate the region's voices, including those who have expressed divergent views, to reason together for the sake of the people. They say Mount Kenya needs to speak in one voice as the country approaches the 2022 general elections. Muturi's coronation has brought division in Mount Kenya, with some saying his coronation did not follow the right Agikuyu norms. 77% of Trans Nzoia County residents have not been registered for NHIF, thus incurring the cost of medical treatment, while receiving NHIF fees from Transnational Time Cycle Management to pay for the treatment of about 20 patients over a period of 1 year. The county's health officer, Sami Masibo, said since COVID-19 was reported, many Kenyans have failed to pay the NHIF fees.
The county is about 23% in terms of UHC uptake, and that's why such initiatives actually go a long way in terms of the county even achieving its enrollment rate. And given that we are existing in the times of a pandemic, we have witnessed a very high increase in the number of waivers that are being requested. The SACCO has given us support in terms of NHIF payments for up to 20 patients. So these are patients who will leave the hospital without paying a cent and will be catered for in terms of medical bills for the entire year.
The SACCO says about 3 million shillings had been invested to benefit patients over the next 3 years.
This one we have done because it is part of our strategic plan 2021-2025, where we intend to put an investment of about 3 million for the next 5 years to support this hospital in terms of paying NHIF and then also paying the hospital bills for some of the patients. And that's why we have donated even wheelchairs today to enable the patients to be wheeled around the hospital so that it is very easy for them to get health care.
A 17-year-old girl, along with other suspects who assisted her in procuring abortion, are expected to appear in Keroka High Court to answer to the charges. Police Commander in Masaba North Sub-County, Robert Ndambiti, said the incident took place yesterday in Getare village as police officers were informed by a village elder of a fetus wrapped in clothes. The main suspects in the illegal operation, Chris Otundo and Masi Kerubo, were employees of drugstore in Birongo area. A child abused by the stepfather in Kiganjo Thika continues to be treated at Kiambu Level 5 Hospital. The hospital's management said the 8-month-old baby will be released from hospital in the next 2 weeks. It is reported that the child was taken to hospital with vomiting problems, but when examined, doctors found that his body was full of signs that he had been abused. They will be arraigned in court, where the man will be charged with child abuse and the mother will be charged with abandonment. The victim's grandmother, Nancy Mukai, said the two have been living as husband and wife for only 3 months. And fans attending England's Euro 2020 group games at Wembley Stadium will be required to show proof of vaccination or a negative test before entry. UEFA says UK-based ticket holders aged 11 or over can show proof of full vaccination. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
Nairobi. 94.4 Spice FM.
Okay,
Nairobi.
we need to just give an update of that accident that happened earlier on, about an hour ago, and it's not a good one. Actually, less than an hour ago, between the Voi Mombasa Road today, just at Mariakani, a fatal accident. Security forces are there trying to sort things out, and it was a fatal accident, and it is causing some traffic as you're headed in an easterly direction that's coming from Nairobi. So please watch out for that. We also saw that truck stalled on the Blue Post flyover this morning, Nyeri Thika, and that's another problem out in that direction. Langata Road is moving slowly this morning, trying to get into the CBD, coming from the Southern Bypass at the exit. You will meet some traffic, but it should be all right getting into the city thereafter. Coming off of Limuru Road, getting past Aga Khan Hospital, use Wangari Maathai Road into the city. Gara has been traffic for about 2 hours now, and it continues. Spice FM KE, let's know what it looks like. We'll check in about half hour or so, see how things have opened up. You can text us as well on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The conversation continues. 0719-012-600. You'll be joining this conversation shortly. CT, today's proverb.
An envious person requires no reason to practice envy.
An envious person requires no reason to practice envy.
Mm-hmm. If you want to be envious, you will be envious.
It's in your DNA.
Actually,
it's in the blood.
One could argue that, but I think I would argue perhaps that we should consider that it's sometimes circumstantial. You see, if you look at somebody, for instance, who has grown up being deprived of very many things, they will always look at others who they feel have more, and they will be envious of them. All right? But now this is where the paradigm shifts when you consider education, because education can give you an opportunity to pursue those very things that you envied others having. Now, and that's what now creates yet another paradigm, that of frustration, that leads often to phases of depression, because you get that education and there's very little you can do with it to achieve what you wanted. Yes, so catch-22 situation.
Yes. Before you continue the conversation, I've just seen something here. Someone saying, I posted my car on social media some times back looking for a potential buyer. Today I receive a call from someone saying that they're interested in seeing the car, so we meet at Garden City. Came, saw it, said, I really like the car, but you see, I'd like my wife to look at it and also see whether they like the car. So they drove from Garden City to Ngong.
Hey, God.
Garden City, okay.
Kumbe the guy wanted a lift.
Clever guy.
Get to Ngong and he disappeared. Then he sent a message, wife ataki gari.
Fake news, huh?
About the wife wanting to see the car, yes.
No.
This one?
Him wanting to buy the car.
Yes.
But that was a really clever way of getting a lift, isn't it?
Brilliant.
But on the other hand, how do we know that perhaps, again, this mythical, supposedly mythical wife didn't really want a car?
Bottom line is, somebody got a lift.
But in Ngong Nimbali.
Someone was taken from Thika Road to Ngong.
That's something
for free.
In the hope that the vehicle would sell.
Well, if you're trying to sell a vehicle, surely, and there's indication that you have a possible client, they're not asking you to give them the car. They're just saying, why don't we go and sit here? Not a bad idea. And what day did they choose? Because if it's a day when there's a lot of traffic on the road, it may be tricky.
Can you imagine? Must have been.
The things people.
Kenyans. So, Dr. Monica Juma has given a very good account of what the Ministry of Defense is doing in this National Development Project and the plan. And it seems that, yes, there's some clear thinking on what they'd like to do. Let's utilize, people have been saying, our soldiers just sit in the barracks. Unless they've been blue-hearted and gone for some peacekeeping mission, which is, about 100, 200, 300 officers. The rest are just here. Until they went to Somalia, they were just here. And yet we have serious competencies in these barracks. We have engineers of all types. You've got pilots. You've got, name it, you have them with us in the military. So why not utilize them into some of these activities as long as they are working under the authority or the oversight of some civilian body? And this is the Ministry of Defense and the Cabinet Secretary for Defense, and the President and the Cabinet Secretary reports to the Cabinet and the President. So it's all basically the government making use of its officers.
Making use of the resources it has at its disposal, because in the absence, as you correctly put it, of a war, they will go for training, then more training, and then generally just hang out in the barracks. That's how a civilian like me looks at it.
Yeah.
And yet, this is a department that is full of competencies. You know where my mind went to when we're talking about the railway refurbishing, the Nanyuki line and so forth, SGR. Because
they should have done the SGR.
Yeah, but they have an engineering corps. These are engineers. And when I say engineers, mechanical, civil, it's a corps.
Yep.
That is what they do. They are trained to be engineers. Now, when you look at the planes that we have, for instance, do you imagine, for instance, that every repair that you have to bring in talent or you have to bring in expertise? No, we have the expertise here.
We have it here.
You think of the Navy, for instance. You think when those ships require repair, they also have an engineering. They are people who have those competencies. Now, that competency is not limited to that particular discipline. It can be exported elsewhere. And I think what we're seeing is precisely that. It being put to use in civilian life, should I argue, where it's actually most needed.
Where it's needed.
Yes.
Other places where you've seen some heavy military industrial complexes, though, is where also those countries, you have what we may describe as strong arm leadership.
Yes.
If you look at countries like Egypt, for example, where the military is very, very much involved in industrial affairs.
Yes, they are.
But then what is the president, the current president of Egypt, is a military man?
They have had a series of people, with the exception of that brief break.
With Morsi.
Yes, exactly. Many of the leaders have had a military background.
Yeah.
Now, if you understand, that isn't militarizing the country, because that country is actually civilian. So it is the military officers who then become civilian rulers, meaning they subject themselves even to an election. We've seen that perhaps best in Nigeria, where military leaders, there is a coup, military leaders reform. We saw it in Ghana as well, and they become civilians. Multi-party politics is ushered in, and they stand for elections like everybody else. So the idea of the military being brought into civilian life is not really strange or new. It's only strange and new when you look at the military and we compare them with some of the adverse things that we relate to them, like coups.
Right.
Like when look, if a military gets to a point where it has some serious muscle in the economy of the country, right? And then it feels that the person who's at the helm of the civilian authority is taking the country in a different direction, it's going to affect our shipyard. It's going to affect the kind of business we are doing. The kind of policies that these guys are coming up with are going to affect our biashara. Then the military gets tempted to decide, you know what, we need a friendly person. Somebody who thinks straight.
Actually, we have countries...
Because this person is not thinking straight. Look at Turkey.
Yes, look at Turkey. Look at... well, Myanmar is an extreme case. Look at Pakistan. You're talking about countries where the military is part of the political process.
Yes.
Meaning, for you to actually even become a leader in that country, you'd better be getting along with the military.
They've got to endorse you in one way.
They more or less have to sort of like have a say. They are not going to sort of like commandeer how you function on a day-to-day basis, but they are an integral part of that particular system. And who's to say that that system is absolutely negative? Myanmar has given a terrible picture of the negativity of it.
I think because of some of the pictures that you get about the potential for things to go awry is why. That because there is that element of control that the military wields, discipline and such, that you would then provide a situation whereby an over assumption of that same control then would come to play. And we have seen situations whereby that hunger or that desire then has superseded the desire for operations and order. That countries then have gone from a place whereby military and civilian government were working hand in hand to whereby the military wanted to take over completely. Like you say, examples like Myanmar, for example, cannot but be used like this to say that the military, for example, has decided that democratic elections which took place 6 months ago were not free and fair, and they have decided, because of the invitation that they had previously to work on this government together, right? Now has decided we are going to take control, and then what do you have? A militarized country.
But you know what is interesting? If you look at the history of some of these countries, the military has been in charge for an extremely long time. If you look at the civilian leader, say for instance of Myanmar, she is a military child.
She is.
Okay? And there are those who've argued that it is because of that background that some felt she should have been a little more critical of the military. But if you've grown up in that system, you'll probably understand it, and you'll know exactly how it functions, and you'll probably understand the balance of things. Because you see, there's an absolutist way of looking at some of these things and saying, if you're civilian, this is what you should do, and this is what the military should do. But I'm arguing that Western concept is all good and well, but because of their democratic system, the military also still has a say. It's just that they're not in your face.
It has a lot of say in very many things that happen.
Yes, they do.
The same way the CS was saying. So you have all the expertise. You have very many countries, even in the West, where the military is the one that is involved in medical research and biomedical research.
Yes.
It's actually led by the military.
It is.
Everybody else will come in and play. The big pharma will come, but the initial research happened somewhere with the support of the military or within the military.
And they have the funding to do that. In fact, in Kenya, there is an organization called Walter Reed. It is the military wing of research, the American military wing. It's called Walter Reed. Meaning, they long understood that when they are carrying out their mandate of security provision, one of the things they also need to understand is diseases.
Yep.
Yes, because the military doesn't stay within the boundaries of their country. The military goes elsewhere.
They understand that disease can be a weapon.
The disease is a weapon. In fact, many wars have been lost not by military might, but by diseases.
Yeah.
Or should you say won by diseases. In fact, if you look at some of the greatest generals that we've known, people who've conquered nations, and you look at the foray that they made into other countries, what you'll find actually decimated their power was not the other military power. It was disease.
It was disease. So with all those things having been said, do you support the increased use of military in national development? That's a question we're asking you. Do you support that increased use of the military? So the CS told us, look, constitutionally, Kenya's military has 3 mandates. 1, defend the territory and sovereignty of the country, offer aid to civil authorities, and restore peace and stability internally. Okay? Now, that second one, offering aid to civil authorities, when they have a lot of work that they are doing in these particular areas, do you think it's a way to go? Are we making good use of them? Is there a risk, a future political risk of having a military that's very, very much involved in the affairs outside the barracks when they go into Kenya Meat Commission, when they're making ships, when they're the ones who are looking at how we are exporting bullets across Africa, guns across Africa? What else are we exporting? Now they'll come up and start doing trucks. The ones will start developing tractors. When you talk about manufacturing of tractors, it will be a military thing. And then, where does it stop? Those are the questions we are asking. We'd like to hear from you. 0719-012-600. SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Karaoke in Lavington, Nairobi. Good morning.
Good morning, the awesome trio.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
You are
Karaoke.
really very kind, Karaoke. Thank you so much. Could you repeat that again?
Yeah?
Just
Or is it the
repeat it. I didn't
splendid
quite hear
trio?
it. Something trio?
Is it the awesome trio?
Yes.
I don't want to hog the mic and use a mouthful to greet you guys individually. Well, I can, but I just find awesome trio to be easy to roll off the tongue.
Nice.
Yeah, so thanks for taking my call. In war theater, if an infantryman wants to change position, he will tell one of his platoon members who is wielding a big gun, please give me cover. So the infantryman will let out a burst of gunfire from this big gun, and then you can change position. So what happened is that Eric provided cover for Madam CS. Eric said, we are taking a break. We'll be back with this conversation. We are bidding farewell to the people who have joined on KTN. What Eric didn't say is that Madam CS is leaving. So you provided cover, Eric. So anyway, that is a light touch.
You had questions.
And then when the show resumes or the traffic updates, one seat is empty. I'm like,
Kumendaje.
Eric was,
You missed a bit
Anyway,
there when you came back, and she actually said goodbye.
Oh, I probably did.
Yes.
I got a phone call. Sorry.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
on to my point.
If you remember, any of you remember, the late 80s, there is a spot in the CBD of Nairobi, you know the Green Corner area behind Kencom? So in the early 90s and late 80s, that entire parking lot was awash with cars, and they were all Peugeot 504 pickups, and they were KCB branded. And then there was a change in management philosophies around the world. Somebody joined, if you remember Gerald Mahinda, I think it was, joined KCB as a CFO. And he realized that KCB was spending so much money on spares for these 504s and paying drivers. And the work of these 504 pickups was actually to deliver checks. So if you paid somebody in Thika, A pickup will be dispatched to Thika, another one to Kisumu, another one maybe to Malindi, and so on and so forth. So there was a philosophical interrogation of why are we in this business when we have G4S Courier and Fargo Courier? It's their core business. Let's outsource this to them. And even those organizations that had cleaners in the payroll, maybe an organization in in manufacturing or in services sector or media house or whatever it is, they outsourced that business to a cleaning company so that they could focus on their core business. Where am I going with this? When the CDF, the current CDF took over the reins of KDF, he said that his intention was to sharpen the arrow. And I believe he meant sharpen the arrow individually and collectively of our soldiers so that they can be more effective in their core mandate. I would imagine that there's a Directorate of Legal Affairs or Legal Services in the KDF. I would imagine they will not be bogged down suing meat suppliers or court cases. I would imagine that the accountants in KDF who are military officers will not be so busy engaged in KMC affairs. So one of the questions that I was hoping, it didn't come out clearly, that I was hoping one of you would ask, Madam CS, was where does this newfound ventures into enterprise like KMC stop? The other day, C.T. Muga made reference to the moribund industry in Western Kenya, sugar industry in Western Kenya. He also cited the once brimming, once successful cashew nut industry in Kilifi. So if KMC was not paying meat suppliers in good time,
it was not even slaughtered.
KMC was 7 cows.
Yeah, but even if that was the case, I don't know how long KCC takes. One of the excuses that was bandied when KDF took over KMC was that the military is one of the heaviest consumers of meat. I believe the military is are also heavy consumers of sugar, as they are of what? Dairy. So if KCC is taking too much time to pay farmers, does it mean that then we need to send KDF? Because sugar industry is in shambles, should we send KDF? Where does it stop? If it's a question of doctrine, and the CS said there is a certain doctrine in KDF where you're given instructions and you have to live up to it, there are also similar doctrines in the private sector called discipline.
I think I did ask the question.
Is a good state enterprise.
I asked her, how far will this go? And if you remember what she said, and I think it was an answer that encompasses all, is that facts don't lie. We are not looking at something that, she was not going to answer if she was going to spread into all the sectors in the country. But in terms of what they've been able to do with what they currently have, the facts are not lying. So if you want to infer what an answer to that would be, and then you can go ahead and do that.
What would be wrong, Karaoke? What would be wrong if this is a successful venture? What would be wrong in the Ministry of Defense going into the sugar sector?
I'll tell you what is wrong in my opinion. I could be wrong, but I'm both sure and convinced that I'm not. They are successful state enterprises. Kengen, for example. Kengen has now become an exporter of its skills, sinking or drilling geothermal wells in Ethiopia now.
Yep.
They have some sort of private sector discipline. Now, KDF, like the mainstream government, in my observed opinion, is addressing not the disease, which is poor management and running down of state enterprises. KDF has addressed a symptom, which is what? We are slaughtering only 7 cows.
Karaoke, surely, I've listened to your logic and your reasoning, but this conclusion, if you ask me, they seem to have been solving the problem and not the symptom. The symptom was not, the 7 cows were the symptom, not the problem, but that's not what they're solving. If you remember what the CS also said, yes, please go ahead.
Sorry, City. I was going to deliver now the point. The point is that you can have discipline among civilians. Can we deal with that?
How long must we wait to see that discipline taking shape, Karaoke?
I mean, if you have the will, you can do it. I would rather that KDF does its commandate, even if it's
so you'd
from
like
a statutory
if they're coming, for example, to offer aid to this civilian authority, there should be an exit strategy. Come in, streamline operations at KMC, show this whole doctrine, train people, transfer this knowledge, and then leave.
Yeah, or there should be synergies. I am very happy with KDF getting involved in rehabilitating railway lines. Why? Because in case of war, God forbid, they will need those infrastructure to haul military wear and essential, foods and stuff like that. That one is different. But when you start saying we're going to raid KMC tomorrow, then I fear that there will be KCC next.
It will not
and
stop.
then it will undermine the philosophy of the new KDF head. Let's sharpen the arrow. I'm sure he was not talking
Karaoke,
about...
let me ask you this question. And what would be wrong if KDF did precisely what you are fearing? Because if you know how it is the human resource in our defense forces are trained, they are supposed to reflect the very good governance in a modern society or country. And they're trained in everything, from politics to the disciplines we speak of. They are what someone would call a critical mass in and of themselves, and the resources we have within the country. So even as we keep saying that it's a leadership gap and we have the resources that can provide that leadership, why not deploy them?
What they're doing is noble, even at KMC. You asked me what would be wrong. What I feel is not right is that the military is spreading itself thin and away from their core business and venturing into an area where civilians like you and I, City.
That's our sphere.
That's my fear.
But they were given for the longest time, and we saw,
and we failed miserably.
So now we let the military run the country.
No.
So we elect the president who's a military person. Let's hear from other callers as well. Thank you, Karaoke. Anthony in Kisumu, good morning.
Good morning, City, Eric, Ndu, and Eric.
Good morning.
I keenly listened to the CS talk about the discipline and the change that KDF has done by when the CS was enumerating that. And it's true, they have done a lot. My main worry again is I think the state at which Kenya is going unconstitutionalism, because she said that the KDF is constitutionally constituted in Kenya, which is true. It's within our laws and they have to serve our country. We pay the taxes for that. One question though, there was a ruling against the KDF taking the KMC by the Kenyan court, right? What are we showing that the judiciary can make this? The executive and the military can still go ahead. And as the caller that preceded me said, what will prevent them again from going to take Mumia's sugar that is currently under squabbles of receivership and all that?
The court order, actually, Anthony. The court order.
If they say that Devki, yes, please.
The court order gave the Ministry of Defense some time within which to conduct public participation, because the issue was there was not adequate public participation before this transfer happened.
Yes.
So they were given time. The order was you need to conduct public participation satisfactorily within a certain time before you can continue with the work. And I think the CS has even said before that they were given, I think, was it 60 days? And within those 60 days, they conducted public participation and then they moved on.
Was it done, the public participation?
Yes. It was published.
You know where there's a beef, Anthony, and where you have a point is with the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. That matter is still in court, and there's a back and forth about it. And of course, one always asks the question, surely they could have done the same thing. Why didn't they find a legal way of doing it?
Why not start from there in the first place?
Yes.
And even this time, when you're told to do public participation, how do we measure that proper public participation has taken place?
You know, it's an interesting argument, and when it gets legal, then and you hear arguments from both sides, I usually end up getting confused because one side seems to make sense. When the other side speaks, they also seem to make sense. So I'm not really sure.
You're just lost.
Yes, but what gives me confidence is the knowledge that a resource that is available is being utilized for the benefit of the country. That is where
That's where
that's where I'm
you're
stuck.
sticking.
Yes.
Okay, Josephine in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd just like to make a small contribution to the topic today.
Go ahead.
The threat that we face, we have looked at the military traditionally from the point of view that their role is to protect us in times of war. The threats that we face today are not from outside our borders, mostly. I'm not undermining the threats that exist. In terms of war, maybe Somalia could decide to attack us. I'm not downplaying that. But our threats are within us, mostly. My livelihood as a Kenyan is affected mostly by the things that happen within our borders. Therefore, I find a lot of relevance in the military trying to have an interest in addressing those issues that can improve my livelihood as a Kenyan. In that way, I see them still performing their core mandate as in relation to taking care of my interests as a Kenyan and securing me. Security for me is not that an Ethiopian or a Somali guy is coming to point me with a gun today. Yes, it can happen. We know terrorism happens. But my threats really are leaders plundering my resources and me not being able to get services and me not being able to perform or, get health care because we have stolen the resources. If the military can come and address that by participating in these civilian processes so that I am able to get my railway at half the price, and meaning I don't have to struggle so much to pay the loans that go towards paying that railway when a Chinese guy comes to do it here, then I support.
Okay. Thank you very much, Josephine. Very well said. Yegon, good morning.
Good morning, Eric, City, and Du.
Good morning, Yegon.
Yes, I think what these guys are doing is good. What we are being blinded for is what we learned in history and government, that the work of KDF is to protect us, forgetting that KDF is a one-man made government. That's why when you hear that the army or what have overthrown the government, there is a system. Even if we declare a state of emergency, everything will run on itself. So we have seen the fruits of KDF. Look, we have, for example, Nairobi. Before Bajon Bad, how was Nairobi? Today, within less than 1 month, 1 year, the general has self-transformed Nairobi. If we go to, like, for example, that moment we were holding on, there was a bridge, it was impassable. And KDF went there, installed that bridge to the extent when Uhuru was leaving, was telling that they have installed to move the bridges, let it serve one engine. So where was the county government of Narok before KDF? So look at railway. Railway have been collecting tax. They could not maintain roads until the introduction of KDF. Now we are seeing how it's working. Me, I support these guys. In fact, if I was MCO of Nandi County, I would have written the president to form a Nandi County metropolitan to be run by
Thank you, Yegon. Amani, good morning.
Good morning, awesome team. How are you?
Good morning, Amani.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Du. Thank you for saying good morning first, Du.
Good morning, Amani.
Good morning, CT. Now, I have some concerns about the military being involved in what is normally civil matters. And this is because they have a very different management style and system in the military that does not transfer well within a normal corporate world. For one, if you dare to sort of question the authority in the military setup, you may be court-martialed because that's not the way they operate. Whereas in the corporate world, Eric, I'm sure you could ask your boss, the CEO, sir, this doesn't work because of A, B, C, D, and you can hold your ground without being seen as being, what's the word, insubordinate. And if you have HR issues, you can take it to the HR department, to sort out the issues between you and the boss. But I don't see how that's going to happen when we have the CEO coming from the military. He's in a corporate world. He's got staff under there who are not military staff. Where do they take him? Would they go to be court-martialed? I mean, they go to a court-martial and bear witness there? Or what? How do we punish such a person? Or how do we interact with them on a day-to-day basis when they have a very different disciplinary system in place and that they abide by? And I think that's why Uhuru brought them in, because he's their commander-in-chief. When he orders, it's yes, sir. How high, sir? It's not, I beg your pardon, sir. That would work, and I'm not going to go down that route. Because it's not business.
Are you saying, Amani, that the military does not question at all?
No, I'm not saying that at all. But it's far less than would happen in a regular corporate world.
Which is what we have seen in our civil service. Minister comes, junior officer say, "Well, utatuacha tu hapa," and they don't do anything.
Which is true.
Now here we are. The lieutenant colonel has been posted, or a major has been posted, and he's running affairs, and he says, I need these things to move. You obey, or we deal with you.
But why must it be the military or the civil community? This is rubbish. This is where the nonsense is. This is where the lie is. Eric, where you are right now, you do your job, or you're out of that door.
Yes.
It's totally civil. We don't need to have the military working at KTN, to get you to do your job, or CT, or do, or whoever is there. And all the corporate companies I've worked for, we had no military there, and we worked like clockwork, international level kind of deadlines, etc. So really, this is just a lie. Uhuru wants people who cannot possibly question him because it could be court-martialed. He is the commander-in-chief.
That is certainly one side of this discussion. But in all honesty, what I sometimes hear not being stated is that the military are not necessarily competent to carry out the duties that they have been given. And yet I find them competent, because if you look at every time they've been deployed to do something, it isn't that the civilians who are tasked with that mandate were doing a splendid job and they're just being brought in to sort of like mess up this splendid job that the civilians were doing. Usually the civilians messed up that whole set completely, and it was non-functional. It wasn't even limping. It was moribund. It was dead. So
absolutely true.
Yes.
Absolutely true.
And would it be far from the thinking, would it be far from reality, Amani, that the president actually wanted this thing to run right? As opposed to thinking that he just wants control.
No. I'm positively accepting of the fact that he wants things to run right. The lie is that we have to have the military do it. And I am saying we have a lot of blue chip companies here in Kenya who can compete internationally. They get things done right without getting the military involved. And these are Africans, fellow Kenyans, who do an amazing job.
Amani, there's a bit of a problem here. And let me state what the problem is. Every time we blame politicians for being corrupt and we say they are doing this and the other, the people who we should point fingers at also are the corporate sector as well, because they are the ones who generate huge amounts of money. They are the ones who actually have the might to actually influence some of these things. Okay? Parliament does not generate income. They are a net consumer. Okay? And the output that you expect from them, why sometimes it's so lopsided, is because they are influenced. And if you look at the heart of the problem we keep discussing here, is the tendency and the trend that Kenyans have developed for is an appetite for making money. No, sorry, let me correct that. An appetite for stealing money even where you thought it could not be stolen. Okay? So when the military as you say correctly, function under a different morality, a different thinking. Such things, even if they were to exist, my friend...
Are they immune from such?
They are not immune, but they are infinitely better at delivering...
So you're replacing a robber who has a knife and a ngeta, and you're bringing an armed robber.
Actually, I would actually argue that we are replacing a robber, if I'm to use your analogy, who has a ngeta, with somebody who actually prefers to actually take what you have left unattended to.
Okay. Remember, guys. Okay, as I said, they're Kenyans, ordinary civilian Kenyans, who can do those jobs.
True.
But when you keep picking people because they're politically correct, that's the only sort of criteria you're using. You're going to get the mess we see in the civil service, we see in this government NGOs. You're going to get that mess. But if they give you the job purely on merit, yeah, and you have you've got goals and stuff to achieve, and you must achieve them. If you don't, you're out. Like what happens in any corporate world. All this manenos will end like yesterday. It will not be happening.
I have Henry as well on the line. Let's hear from Henry, who's in Mombasa. Thank you, Amani.
One thing.
Okay, one thing, Amani. Please say it.
Recruitment. They've been accused of bribery and corruption during other recruitment. They're not above board either. Thank you, guys, and I'm sorry to take your time.
Thank you for taking the time, Amani.
Thank you. Henry, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
I'm an old friend of CT.
General, how are you?
Very well. This conversation is exciting me.
Yes.
Because we are talking about three categories of people. The corporate world is totally different. The civilian in the civil service is also a different category with an appetite that CT explained very well. So when you are looking at this subject, you have to look at them through those two categories. The civil service is supposed to operate like a corporate entity, and they have not been able to do so. They are just a mess.
They most certainly are.
And they don't care whether the institution goes down. And remember, the political class also influences them. I have a friend of mine who was made an MD, and elections were just around the corner, and they were called into a caucus, and you are told your part of contribution is 43 million. And he kept asking himself, where am I going to get this 43 million? But we gave you a job. We gave you a job.
Be resourceful.
Therefore you should know where to get it. So, but I want to just emphasize what CT said. The military fighting capability is a very, very small part of their business. When we look at the threat, if National Produce Board cannot even store grains, the military gets jittery because it means when we go to war, we might not have food.
Yeah.
If the Kenya Meat Commission is a mess, it means we cannot have our corned beef, we cannot have our meat, and therefore it will degrade that arrow which has been sharpened. It will be totally degraded. So threats that military look at are totally different from what civilians think the core business of the military is. When you go to the Defense Staff College, one of the subjects there is national industrial capacity. The capacity of industry to support the war effort. Is the railway line working? Are the roads working? Can we move our tanks from point A to B? Is the food system working? Are we insecure in food? Can we get fuel? Are the hospitals and dispensaries of government able to treat injured soldiers, or do we have to take them all the way to Memorial Hospital? Those are the things the military looks at, and that's why they train and they're good in them. And therefore, if you give them a job like rehabilitate the railway line, they'll do it. If you give them a job, clean up, all barracks are clean. Cleanliness is it is godliness, and the military is that, in my opinion, is loved by God, and that's why they've survived all this long.
Henry, so if I may ask you, then, so if we just look at that as this is how the military is looking at all these things, if we are not able to get our supplies to us, then it leaves us exposed. Let's go to Karaoke's question. The military consumes a lot of sugar. The military consumes a lot of dairy products. Our sugar industry is basically in doldrums. Our new KCC has been revamped. Would there be then a natural cause for the next thing after sorting out the meat supply is let's sort out sugar supply?
The military contribution to the world business is good management system. The management system of our civil service is wanting to the core. And therefore, you give them anything, they will just run it down. The military doesn't bring any new expertise. It just brings good management practice and things work. So the issue of their core business is gun and bullets. That's a very small part of business. Okay. A small part of business. But management is a core business of military, and the management of people who are going to die is very important.
Thank you very much, Henry. Thank you for your call from Mombasa.
Most welcome, sir.
Asante.
Thank you, Henry.
Most welcome, CTA. How's your leg?
It's not bothering me completely. I no longer limp, neither do I walk with a cane.
God bless you. God bless you, sir.
Thank you, Henry.
12 minutes to 10. Let's take a quick break. Take a look at the weather and traffic, and then also remind you about the Samsung.
So that we asked
giveaway.
We asked that question today, and on the specific A52, how long does the battery last? 1 day, 1.5 days, or 2 days? And that's what we're asking you to post on our social media handles today, SpiceFM KE on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, and asking about what it does take to make you awesome. And Safaricom, and Samsung is letting us know that in these A32, A52, and A72 series, you have an opportunity to show you're awesome. And that question that gets you some great Samsung merchandise today is, how long does the A52 battery last? 1 day, 1.5 days, or 2 days?
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
What is the best gift to celebrate a birthday? Cash, of course. What if I told you that you can get cold, hard cash for celebrating a birthday? This June, I, Olivia Otieno, is giving 10,000 shillings to 41 lucky Spice FM listeners to celebrate my 41st birthday. That's right, this June, 41 lucky Spice FM listeners will get 10,000 shillings cash. All you need to do is SMS the word cash to 29599. That's cash to 29599. And if your SMS is number 41 or number 1041 every Monday to Friday, you walk away with 10,000 shillings cash. Each SMS costs 10 shillings. Terms and conditions apply. Go to spicefm.co.ke for more details.
All right, still cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 14. Light rain in parts of Nyeri at 17, highs of 22 and lows of 14. 25 the high in Nakuru. It's sunny at 18. It's also sunny at 18 in Eldoret, highs of 25 and lows of 11. We'll see highs of 29 in Kisumu. It's sunny at 23. 23 also sunny in Kakamega, highs of 29 and lows of 14. 28 high today in Mombasa. It's raining in some parts. We also have rain continuing in Malindi with highs of 28 and lows of 24. 26 will be the high in Kampala, mostly sunny at 24. Light rain in Dar es Salaam continues at 25. Highs of 28. 12 will be the high in Johannesburg. It's now sunny, getting a little bit warmer at 8. And mostly sunny conditions in Lagos at 24. Highs of 31 and lows of 25. 24 will be the low in Kinshasa. It's partly sunny at 23. 24 and rain showers in Beijing, highs of 27. 27 will be the high in Paris. It's sunny at 18 and 16 degrees, and sunny in London, highs of 26 and lows of 16. And finally, coming into Wednesday in New York, it's sunny at 22. Cloudy conditions here and there, highs of 31 and lows of 23.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Okay, so we're looking at still a little bit of traffic on Mombasa Road. Goes out to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. But I think we're looking at a better situation now. Where it's still heavy is outside of the city. Looking at that situation at Blue Post, and also the situation on the Voi Mombasa Road today, where that terrible accident occurred earlier. And so causing massive traffic in and outbound Nairobi, and then inbound Mombasa, and then outbound Mombasa, inbound Nairobi. So we're looking at both of those. And on the thicker Nyeri side, that caused some traffic today, and we're still looking at the dregs of that. So let's keep an eye on things, guys, shall we? Through the day, if you get stuck somewhere, let us know. Find good routes, let us know as well. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Military Officers in Development and Civilian Affairs. Some comments. Guido Jaka says, I disagree with the caller who insists the civilians should run corporations with clear KPIs. This has been tried where CSAs are gotten from blue chip companies. In caps, he says, they have failed.
There's been a time to test this before. There have been many years to test this. If we're just using KMC as an example, here you had an opportunity. Try again. We ask you what's wrong. They say, okay, we don't have enough. Money is pumped in. Was money not pumped into KMC on several occasions? How many times? They said, okay, what's the problem? Come, let us sit and reason together. What do you need? Okay, take. Still, it was not possible. Then in 60 days, you bring in an outfit. And in 60 days, they're able to streamline
But
things.
this is what I'm asking. So what was the problem at KMC? If you get a point where an entity that is being run by the Ministry of Agriculture, which has had very many CSs from the corporate sector, from former government, PSs, and yet it got to a point where it was slaughtering 7 cows a day.
They were not taking their job seriously.
So
and here's somebody who's taking their job seriously and getting it done.
So it's the issue then is, how do we address, if that is something that is happening under the Ministry of Agriculture, what else? How many state corporations are under the Ministry of Agriculture?
The people who were moved from the corporate sector, when they were in the corporate sector, look at their track record. Were they not getting their job done? There is this feeling that when you get into government, that you can behave as the way in which you like. Why? When they were in corporate sector, same individuals were performing.
And I think that's what Karaoke was saying. Let's address that problem. Because how many are we going to sort out? How many
as it takes, so if you ask me, sort out as many as it takes.
Eric, that's the thing. We need to sort out, not by militarizing the entire public service, but by making sure that the public service is working the way it should work.
The point you make is a valid one, but remember, the military are not susceptible to these influences by politicians. Just simply put, you are not going to call that person and tell him...
influence him in one way or another. It's not going to happen.
He knows his chain of command and who he listens to, and he's not going to listen to
And he knows what he or she knows what their orders are.
Clear.
And if that is what they follow, to precision.
We romanticize the military so much.
I beg. Sometimes. Those are some basic things
like Amani
that
was
they
saying.
follow.
Are they not caught out in corruption issues with something as basic as recruitment?
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
Something as basic as recruitment.
Yes, they are.
Somebody at the level of a colonel is in charge of the entire recruitment process, and he comes out and says, no bribery.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, some officer who understands their chain of command takes a bribe.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there you are.
Yes. But that is a person who is abrogating dictates that they know they should follow. I mean, no one is saying that the military is devoid of these common issues that we have. They are not devoid, but they have something that our civilian rulers don't have, my friend.
You know, if the next thing that I was hearing was after this experiment with Nairobi County and with Kenya Meat Commission, what we're going to do is identify what the problem is in public service, and then we're going to take these competencies from the military and go and put them in the public service to make sure that in the next 10 years, our public service performs the way it should be performing. I'd be okay.
Eric, do you know the amount of training that public servants go through?
I'm going to start begging them to do their job again.
I mean, they're trained.
Please, we have seen that this is the
they
problem.
They are highly competent.
So please
what
follow
is the
this
problem?
rule. Exactly. So is it the
the
individual or the system?
Competence.
Influence.
People have come in to the same system.
So
the meat commission is the same meat commission that was there. They've come in and they have streamlined operations. Why? And I'm asking the same question.
These civilians could have done the same
These civilians came from entities
and
where
it is
they
very
were
possible
working.
for them to actually have done
then
it.
Why didn't they do it? And
if
then
we had moved
they
Monica
come
Juma from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to Agriculture, if we had moved Monica Juma from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to Agriculture and told her, sort out KMC, would she have been able to sort it out?
I believe she would have.
Without the assistance of the military?
She would have had some serious pushback.
Because
we know that what happens in our ministries. CS comes in.
That you need a
my friend, you are told categorically, okay, it is okay. So you found us
I think we also don't want to admit the fact that in public service, people just misbehave.
It's not even
we want to call it very nice things, but it is just blatant
So let's
misbehavior.
sort out that misbehavior.
By bringing in order.
Let's bring in the order. Okay, so if you want to inculcate the order, if you want to bring in what she was calling doctrine, then let's say that these senior people are taken to that defense college. These senior people go and spend 6 months in the military, then they come back, whatever. But we cannot say that we shall now remove soldiers from the barracks to bring to KMC, to bring to sugar, to bring to milk, to bring to...
complaining that we're sitting in the barracks not doing
anything.
Actually,
personally,
Eric, I like it very
let
much.
them take them to Moroni Sugar Company, Chemelil, Mumias, KCC.
Go and work there.
That irrigation that one. Let them take them there. In fact, if they could, take them to Parliament also.
They should take
Today's
them
proverb
everywhere.
then.
An envious person requires no reason to practice envy.
Okay. Guys at the Ministry of Agriculture are quite envious at this moment.
How I wish.
And they know. No, they know. We have been the problem here is not that we have not been telling our bosses. We have been telling them what the problem is.
We have been telling our bosses that we are not doing our job well.
No, we've been telling them what is needed.
Order.
Now, because a soldier just comes and is given what was required in the first place. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's been an interesting conversation. Well, we haven't awarded...
Voila. Let's do that. Can I do it very, very fast?
Yes, you can.
Let's do the news. Let's do the news. It's 10.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. I'm Denisa Seto. Defense CS Ambassador Monica Juma has allayed fears that the current administration seeks to have majority of government responsibilities to be taken over by the military. Commenting on President Uhuru Kenyatta's move to place some institutions under military control such as KMC and Nairobi County, Juma said that was not uncommon since the military contributes to national development.
the role of the military in contributing to national development is not a matter of debate. It's a matter of course, and so it is really deploying, and as I've said before, I think the smart thing a country does is to deploy the full range of its competencies. And in the MOD, we have those competencies, and we have been asked to deploy them. We've done it, and it is working. It is working.
Speaking to SpiceFM, she dismissed the notion that the move was aimed at cracking down on Kenyans. She further noted that service delivery had improved in the military-controlled institutions.
We found a situation. The first briefing I received said, this place slaughters between 3 and 7 cows a day. Facts don't lie. This was the situation on the ground. And you go in and you say, okay, I need a plan. And you have 60 days to turn this thing around. What requires to happen, happens. Within 60 days, we began to test the system, and we used a month to test the system, and we were ready. I was satisfied that we could roll out. Right now, we are providing meat across this country to all the defense units.
The Parliamentary Investments Committee